Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be discussing a pretty controversial topic, the skill gap in Fortnite. In case you're unfamiliar with what the term skill gap means, it basically refers to how large the difference in skill is between top players, bottom players, and everybody else in between. So for example, a game like basketball has an incredibly large skill gap. If Lebron James were to play an average guy 1,000 times one-on-one, he'd win all 1,000 and not a single game would even be anywhere near close. On the other hand, a game like Monopoly has a very low skill gap, and that's due to the fact that the game is relatively simple with a ton of randomness involved. Now, skill gap has pretty much always been a major topic of discussion in the Fortnite community, but due to the removal of the health and material changes in public matches that came in Update 8.20, people are talking about it now more than ever before. And believe it or not, it isn't just as simple as saying that a large skill gap is good and a small skill gap is bad. There are a ton of factors involved with Fortnite's skill gap, and even small changes could have massive impacts on so many important things. So I thought it'd be a cool idea to make a video that covers and breaks down the most popular opinions and arguments regarding Fortnite's skill gap. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so I want to start this video off by showcasing two tweets with opposite yet very valid opinions about skill gap in Fortnite, and just video games in general. The first one comes from Daquan, and this tweet represents the viewpoint of players who want as large of a skill gap as possible. He says, "One day game developers will realize that you can't protect noobs from getting bopped. You add ranked, people will smurf. You separate casual and ranked, people will just go bot farm in casuals. You try to change game mechanics to save them, you ruin your game. History doesn't lie." Now at the time I'm recording this video, Daquan's tweet has about 17,000 retweets and a little over 90,000 favorites. So clearly, a lot of people agree with what he's saying here. However, there are two sides to every argument, and one of the top replies to Daquan's tweet comes from a popular Spanish YouTuber named Zhu Games. He says, "Games die when average players leave. They are the millions, not the 20 kills dudes." I agree, there should be a solution that works for everyone, but it's the average player who keeps a game alive from a business point of view. Look at PUBG, only good players left, and for what? So I think no matter what your personal viewpoint is, you can agree that both of these guys do make some pretty valid points. And even though Luzu's tweet came second as it was a response to Daquan's, I actually want to talk about it first. Even though I'm pretty much always in favor of increasing Fortnite's skill gap, I totally understand why Epic would be reluctant to do that. Luzu is 100% right when he says that average players make up the majority of Fortnite, or really any video game's player base. I mean, think about it like this. An average Fortnite game has 100 total players in it. In that game with 100 players, 99 deaths will be recorded, and when you account for deaths from fall damage or the storm, about 95 eliminations by players will be recorded. If those numbers hold true in the majority of games, which they surely do, that would mean the average KD of a Fortnite player is just under 1.0. I feel like the Fortnite community would treat a 0.95 KD player as pretty bad at the game, when in reality they're totally average. When average players start to leave, it has a lot of negative impacts on the game as a whole, especially from a business perspective. Average players are the reason why Fortnite can do an insane event like the Fortnite World Cup, which has an unbelievable $30 million total prize pool. Average players are the reason why Fortnite can bring us a totally brand new season and battle pass every 2 months or so. Pretty much every positive thing Fortnite does is largely due to the revenue brought in by the average players. And it's funny because Luzu actually got a decent amount of hate for this tweet, and I even saw people personally attacking his skill as a Fortnite player because of it. But what's really funny and ironic about that is the fact that Tfue has echoed practically the exact same opinion for months now. I remember seeing a clip from his stream a few weeks ago where he said something along the lines of, "The more that Battle Royale games try to cater to really good players, the less successful they become. And Tifu's a guy that's been a top-level player in multiple games, so even if you disagree with him, it'd be foolish to just totally discredit his opinion. Now, I think it's really interesting that Luzu brought up PUBG as an example of a game that failed because they didn't do enough to cater to casual players. Ninja even hopped into the Twitter thread at that point in time to respond to the PUBG argument specifically. He said, I disagree, man. PUBG lost their players due to the terrible lag and updates that never fixed the game. Then Fortnite comes out and smashed it, and everyone left except for the hardcore PUBG fans who are obviously talented. I do agree with Ninja's overall point that other factors like lag, bad updates, and most importantly Fortnite led to PUBG's demise more than anything else. But man, doesn't lag and bad updates sound eerily similar to what Fortnite is dealing with right now? I doubt it was as bad as it was with PUBG, but I just found that part pretty interesting and somewhat ironic. So I think that sums up the most important parts of Luzu's argument. And I think that in the Fortnite community, that's definitely the unpopular side of the skill gap debate. So going back to Daquan's tweet now, I think it's really important to note that Fortnite does have one of the highest skill gaps of any popular video game out right now. And as I'm sure all of you guys are aware, Fortnite also happens to be undoubtedly the most popular video game in the world. And it's probably held that title for about a year straight at this point. So I think that kind of works in favor of the general argument that Daquan is making. Fortnite made a game that at its core takes a lot of practice to become even average at. And with that really high skill gap, the game's reached a level of success that I don't think we've ever seen before. And by keeping the skill gap high, it ensures a good experience for the most popular and skilled content creators and competitive players. If guys like Ninja and Tifu are loving the game because they're dominating, they're going to create more content and bring more new players into the game. What's interesting about this is that the main reason Fortnite's skill gap is so high is because of building. Building is a totally unique and hugely skill gap increasing feature for a shooter video game. However, it's also fair to bring up how intimidating learning building can be for newer players. If you're someone that started playing Fortnite within maybe the first 3 or 4 seasons, your experience when it came to improving as a player was probably way different than what it's like for new players now. With how large the skill gap of the game has gotten recently, especially learning how to build can be way more frustrating than it is fun. I briefly talked about this in my last video, but I want to go a little more in depth about what I like to call the frustration cycle of learning how to build in Fortnite. I've actually seen this happen firsthand to a few of my friends who just started playing the game within the last couple of months. Since new players at this point have probably been exposed to Fortnite in some way already, they likely already know the importance of building. So early on in a Fortnite session, they'll make a point of farming up a good amount of materials early in the game. Now, they definitely don't have fun doing this, but they're smart enough to know that it's basically a necessary evil for improvement. The only problem is, since they're new players and Fortnite's skill gap is so high now, even with a bunch of materials, they'll probably still die to the first person they see. When that happens and they realize that they practically wasted 5+ minutes farming materials for nothing, it gets them really frustrated at the game. So what do they do in response to this? They'll start spending less and less time getting materials at the beginning of the game. It makes sense because they don't want to spend most of their allocated time playing Fortnite just hitting rocks and trees, but it ends up making the problem even worse. The majority of new players are guys that, even with a 500 or 1000 material advantage, would still really struggle to kill even an average player. So when these guys decide that they've had enough of farming and are just going to run around with 100 wood and 50 brick, it's almost impossible for them to get any kills. And that's clearly only going to breed anger, frustration, and an overall hatred for the game of Fortnite. This frustration cycle with gathering materials and learning how to build is why I have no clue why Fortnite removed the change that increased the harvesting rate. All they're accomplishing by doing that is making it much harder for new and average players to improve because they never have enough materials to practice in-game. So here's my overall opinion on the skill gap in Fortnite. If you're a good Fortnite player, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you wanting the game to have as much of a skill gap as possible. You put in the time and effort to get really good at the game, so why shouldn't everybody else? However, you also need to understand that increasing the skill gap too much could have some fatal impacts on the game as a whole. And even though it may seem unfair to you, Epic is going to try to cater the game to casual and average players as much as possible. It sucks, but sadly from a business perspective, it's the most efficient and effective strategy for them to make the most money. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the current skill gap in Fortnite? Do you think there's too much of a skill gap, not enough, or is it perfect the way it is? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.